Our new chapter from book Vistas, chapter number 4, The Enemy. Our chapter number 4 is The Enemy, written by Pearl S. Buck. Pearl S. Buck was an American, but was brought up in China. She knew China better than any other foreigner. She wrote about Chinese people, their attitudes and customs. Her novel, The Good Earth, won a Nobel Prize in Literature for her. She had a humanistic attitude to the problems of life. She felt while nations were at war, individuals were human. They could feel for others. Even they could help people from enemy countries. Human feelings of love and sympathy are universal. So this was the introduction of the author. Now we are going to start our chapter, The Enemy, which tells the story of a Japanese doctor who hates Americans because of his patriotism. America and Japan were openly at war. An American prisoner of war is washed ashore in front of the Japanese doctor's house. The soldier is wounded and has evidently escaped from prison. There was no reason to save him. He could have bled to death. But Dr. Sadao helped him and saved his life because he was an excellent surgeon. He helped the American and kept him in his house at a great risk to his own life and reputation. He finally helped him to escape, but he did all despite hating the American all the time. He himself could not know why he had done so. So, let's start the story. Dr. Sadao Hoki's house was built on a spot of the Japanese coast, where as a little boy he had often played. The low square stone house was set upon rocks, well above a narrow beach that was outlined with bent pines. As a boy, Sadao had climbed the pines, supporting himself on his bare feet, as he had seen men do in the South Seas when they climbed for coconuts. His father had taken him often to the islands of those seas. And never had he failed to say to the little brave boy at his side, "Those islands yonder, they are the stepping stones to the future of Japan. Where shall we step from them?" Sadao had asked seriously. "Who knows Japan?" "Where shall we step from them?" Sadao had asked seriously. "Who knows?" His father had answered, "You can limit our future. It depends on what we make it." Sadao had taken this into his mind. Sadao has taken this into his mind as he did everything his father said. His father, who never joked or played with him, but who spent infinite pains upon him, who was his only son. Sadao knew that his education was his father's chief concern. For this reason, he had been sent at 22 to America to learn all that could be learned of surgery and medicine. He had come back at 30, and before his father died, he had seen Sadao become famous not only as a surgeon but as a scientist, because he was perfecting a discovery which would render wounds entirely clean. He had not been sent abroad with the troops. Also, he knew there was some slight danger that the old general might need an operation for a condition for which he was now being treated medically, and for this possibility Sadao was being kept in Japan. Alright, so let's come to the conclusion of these two paragraphs. Sadao was a Japanese. His father, like all the Japanese, was every inch a patriot. He sent Sadao to America to study surgery. Sadao met Hannah there. She too was a pure Japanese. They loved each other. They came back home and were married according to old Japanese custom. They had 2 children. An American soldier is washed up to their house. Dr. Sadao's house was a solitary house on the seashore. One evening, an American soldier was washed ashore in front of their house. The man crawled a few meters toward the house and then fell unconscious. Dr. Sadao and Hannah were there. They found that the American had been shot in the back. He was bleeding. Dr. Sadao had no reason to save him. They thought of throwing him back into the sea, but they would not do so. Sadao plugged the wound to stop the bleeding. Then they carried him into one of the rooms. So till here we have understood about Sadao, whose father sent him to America to learn surgery and medicine. One day, an American was washed ashore near his house, where he was wounded and bleeding heavily. But being the person who hits American, still Sadao tried to save him. What will happen in the story next? We will be studying it later. What will happen in the story next? We will be studying it later. But here there are some words which are difficult to understand, among which number 1 is outlined. Outline means made the boundary. When some boundary is made, that is called as outlined. Next one is pines. Pines means, you must be knowing it, pine, a kind of tree. Next is yonder. The word is yonder. Yonder means at a distance in view. Something which is at a distance in view, which is not easily visible. Alright? So this was the first part of this story. We'll be continuing the story in our next video. I hope you must have understood this. Try to read it by your own also. Thank you and have a nice day.